ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to talk about word generator and Weltschmerz. It is part of my graduation work and also work in international team. I would like to start by introduction. Right here you can see the logo of the team. Team leader is from Finland, but other members are from the USA or other parts of the world. When I first joined the team, I was assigned to make a word generator or map generator, basically anything that could generate biomes, but but there was one requirement, and that is it should be as realistic as possible. The game, when I joined, the game was made in the game was written in Java. The game was written in Java, and we used JME engine, but it lost popularity, and so we had to switch to Godot engine. So I had to rewrite word code from Java to C#, which took quite a lot of time, but I somehow managed to do it. And this was first problem. The second problem was generating the actual word, because we want to generate as huge words as possible, and for that and this is very complicated. My first idea was to generate this map, where I used elevation, and I estimated that grasslands are, for example, elevation 10, and the grassland can be, for example, pixel, and from the pixel I would use metric to calculate surrounding area. So, for example, one pixel could be 1,000 kilometers, but this wasn't optimal. I had to regenerate the whole map, and it was fast, but the problem is it's good for 2D maps, but it's bad for 3D games and voxels, which is our main priority. This means that we couldn't use it, because 1,000 kilometers is a huge distance which we have to recalculate, and there could be mistakes, and we cannot afford it. So we had to abandon this idea. Also, a problem of pixels is that there are squares, so they have sharp edges. I tried to fix this by using polygons and Foreman graphs, but it took even longer than pixels and was quite worse. But it allowed me to create tectonic plates. But because I had to abandon it, I couldn't make tectonic plates in the end. So, as I mentioned, 2D map generation and 3D voxel generation. We tried to make a universal app that could fit requirements for every possible contributor or user, or someone who just wants to create his own project based on our library. I forgot to mention that when we switched from Java Monkey engine to Godot, I had idea to split the generator and the Weltschmerz. This means that I had desktop application and library. Word generator is a desktop application which contains user interface, and this can be used for testing or just for proof of concept. The library Weltschmerz then can be imported to any project. If someone wants, for example, create his own word 2D or 3D, he can then use the Weltschmerz library in his project and generate similar words. So, first problem is noise and elevation. This is foundation of any map because noise can create the elevation, and as you can see here, it can create basic maps. It's semi-random generated. This means I use seed. If you use same seed, you get same map, but I can also use Earth's map for testing and to see if there are bugs or if it's just working properly. Noise is very hard to make, so I decided to use library. The library is called Fast Noise C#, and it is made by Burns, which is, in my opinion, a really genius guy. And as you can see, I could generate the very first map, which contained basic continents. White is where the land is, and black is where the water is. Once I had to do basics, I could do basic separation, like black is water, as you can see here. Green is land, as you can see here. I could do also mountains, and like this, I can get basic. I can get basic work, as I said. We also want to make torus mapping in our project, so we had to do seamless noise, which means basically seamless maps. You can see it here. It is one map which I put 4 times in image editor next to each other, so the borders are connected. This means you can go from east to west when you reach the border. So you can basically cycle around the world. The disadvantage of this is that it makes dwarfing much slower. Next problem was temperature. Temperature is basically the next level of elevation, because when you do temperature properly, you can then make this quite a realistic map. It's not something amazing, but it could do. I think Endless Legend game use this kind of biome distribution when they only decide biomes by temperature. I made this by making parallel, or the equator in the middle of the map, and around the equator the temperature is highest, and it decreases when it goes to poles, and it also decreases with higher elevation. So the higher distance from equator, the colder it is. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Yes, also I wanted to mention that temperature decrease is called lapse rate. And this is important to note because I use it even after that. The next problem was evaporation and humidity. I think this can be realistically calculated. So I used an estimation from Thomas Forster-Lesis. He made equation if I put the equation into a graph, or if I make the equation into graph, you can see that here, around the poles, there's almost no humidity. This means, you can see it here, where it's in negative values. This means there's almost nothing, and it increases with distance. So, as you can see on this map right here, there are poles which have subpolar climate belt, and after that there is mild climate belt, subtropic climate belt, and tropic climate belt. And this is the estimation of graph, where when it's in negative values, it's subpolar, then it goes higher when it's mild, and goes a little bit lower when it's subtropic, because in mild climate there is high humidity, and we can see there often forests and habitable life in general. But in the subtropic there are often deserts and places uninhabitable by people. And in tropic climate belt there are rainforests and etc. Yeah. So because there are forests, it goes around this position, then it lowers to make deserts, then it goes higher to make rainforests, and then it repeats after the equator. This is how I estimated humidity. Of course, there is also evaporation, and transpiration. Evaporation happens on water or water masses, and transpiration happens on land masses. Evaporation usually generates or evaporates more water than what can evaporate on land. This means that on oceans there is higher humidity, but on land there is lower than on oceans. The next problem was wind circulation. According to Thomas Wurst's thesis, there are 6 pressure belts, which goes from high, low, etc. And wind circulates, as you can see here. If we make linear circulation, we can estimate that wind goes on North Pole, on North Hemisphere, from east to west, and on South Hemisphere it's quite opposite. So if we keep this direction and make pressure belts by using barometric formula to generate air pressure, barometric formula needs only like lapse rate, which we had from temperature. It needs elevation and some other constants, which we can just write into the code, and pressure at sea level, which is configurable for users. Once we have this, we have barometric formula, we have pressure, and as we know, wind is basically change of pressure. So if we go from point, for example, from this point to this point, we can do this by simply changing position, and we get both pressures, and we can then calculate delta, and delta can serve us as a wind intensity. This means that the higher the intensity is, the more precipitation flows. So, as you can understand now, with the wind, we have precipitation. So, precipitation is basically humidity moved by delta, which is wind intensity. So, now we have precipitation, and we have this graph. It shows us how biomes are distributed. This means here is temperature, here is precipitation. So, type of biome depends on precipitation and temperature, and we have both. But the graph is quite complicated to just simulate or estimate. So I made this image, and the top vector is temperature, and left vector is precipitation. So when I get both values, I can just simply select this image, and by position, which x position is temperature, epsilon position is precipitation, and I can select the color of biome. And how did like this, I can generate 2D maps with biomes. Now comes the showcase of the application. To wait a few seconds, you can see here the Godot engine which we are using. And started, and right now the application is running. I'm running this application from Godot because I want to show you something. Here, the map, every time, each time the application starts, it starts generating a new map from current config, because there is a file, a configuration file, which user can edit, and if he edits values, they can change the map, so I need to always regenerate the map. So for example, I can change C, which generates new map. Latitude and longitude are basically weight and height of the image. As you can see, the generation isn't so fast as it should be, because I had to make a difficult decision. Because we are making 3D game, I had to sacrifice speed for 2D games, so it can be universal. I can change other values, for example, elevation, and set the elevation to 0. Generate again. Generate map depends a lot on config. You can play with it all day, and the map will be always somehow different. Let me just, yes. You see, I decreased minimum elevation, so there is more land. It's showcase. It's the first showcase. Yes, I mentioned configuration, speed, and it is good application. Yes, opponent's nodes. I forgot about that. Oops. I have wrong language here, but it means color difference. So, as you can see, this color are not graphic. These colors might not be pretty, but since the colors are from a graph, I can put more images there with different colors for each biome. So if I edit, okay, it's okay. So it doesn't work, but right now. But I don't know what's broken. But here is another path. You can set there different image to get different color bands. I think it's because Linux, because I'm running right now on Linux. This didn't happen on Windows. Next thing is speed measure. As I told you, it's quite slow. So I tried different method, and it's using threads. I basically slice them up, and each thread is generating different part. So I think it's not well seen, but yeah, we can make it bigger. Here is generation speed with one thread, and here's generation speed with one thread, which is 20 seconds. But if I use 4 threads, it's 10 seconds, and if I use 6 threads, it's 6 seconds. So this is speed increase with using threads. Performance of PC needed for generation is well, Godot is trying to use as much as he can. I measure it to be 80%, but it's kind of it stays in the percentage. But the more threads I'm using, the worse it gets. So the performance is increasing with number of threads. So it's faster, but it's slowing down PC. It's right to the next showcase. Next one is generating. Is using the library to generate voxels in 3D world. This is only a demo. We are not fully done with it yet, but it's working right now. If it loads, and it generates terrain around player. I think I can skip the future and let you some time for questions. Well.
So it's time for questions now?
Yes, it's time for questions.
Yeah. Would you like to ask him some questions?
You say you can use the slice of little segment of the image, and every slice you can with one.
Yes, every slice is generated with one thread. This means I make as many slices as threads. So each thread has its own slice which generates and it speeds the whole thing.
I see that more threads get not linear. It's maybe problem to save the work to hard disk or maybe something else.
I'm not sure about that, but the problem is that yes, right now it generates free work. Well, to be fair, my PC is overheating, so I can move well. It's working much better when I have proper PC, but
It's okay.
yeah, it's running the whole time. It's not this slow. I can use I can show you videos where it's not running on overheated PC.
So it's not for the tropic area.
Well, if I had a better laptop, this one is not very old, but well, it's very old and it's running the whole day because I wanted to make sure that everything is perfect, but it seems that it overheated this time.
He's roasted his PC.
Yes.
He's so it's okay. Is it necessary to?
Yes, we saw it.
Yeah, we saw it. It's okay. So if you want to tell us something more,
it's
how to protect your old PC against.
yeah, you can see that even if the program shuts down, it's so overheated that the operating system does not work. So
Yeah.
it's actually a miracle that something ran on it.
Not the human to blame.
I know it sounds crazy, but
Yeah.
I'm telling the truth.
I think time is out.
Yeah.
Yes.
Congratulations.